Back in the day, it was a novelty to be able to play games with friends. While gaming has always been a communal experience ever since its inception in the arcade, co-op gaming was never really mainstream, at least until the home console era. With games like Halo skyrocketing the popularity of Xbox Live and online gaming into the stratosphere, more and more games had online components added to them, to the point that even games that focused heavily on single player almost always had some form of tacked on multiplayer. This is an interesting trend to go back and look at, because from the perspective of developers and publishers alike, this seems like such a boisterous waste of development resources that could easily be spent polishing aspects of the single player experience. While these tacked on multiplayer modes wouldn't often take much away from the actual advertised game, they remained prevalent until late in the 2010s. One has to wonder what devs and publishers were trying to accomplish with these. Maybe they were trying to strike gold with a surprise hit multiplayer, or maybe by that point it was already an expected and established trend, so might as well add an online component. It's a good selling point on the back of the box, or maybe it was simply encouraged by bigger game companies like Xbox and Sony, who were already pushing for online subscription services. It wouldn't make much sense if one is going to pay a whopping $10 a month for a service like Xbox Live if the games didn't have some form of multiplayer. Ironically, these tacked-on modes are often scorned, not only by people who take games seriously, but also looked down upon by the wider gaming audience as a whole. There's nothing cool about Bulletstorm's multiplayer today. It's just a nuisance for completionists, and a dusty relic of the past for casuals. Not to mention, many passionate fans will fight to the death to get companies to leave old online services open for decades past their initial release. As someone that's always pro-preservation, it's absolutely important that online components of games remain functional for as long as possible. Much of the time these games were sold to us as a service that would last, and we paid good money for them. Games like Hyperscape and Halo shutting down are absolutely unacceptable and a spit in the face of fans who've supported the product from the very beginning. But what about the single-player game model falling out of favor in recent years? More and more games these days are releasing exclusively as online services. Ongoing live service games that are always changing and always connected to the internet. Ironically, we are currently living through one of the least social times in gaming. Back in the day, online games like Halo 3 were new and exciting. Everyone had a mic plugged in, chatting it up in game lobbies, trash talking, or making new friends with characters you'd never have a chance of meeting in the real world. Even if you didn't own a mic yourself, you'd often find yourself listening to arguments of strangers, or your teammates organizing a comeback. There was never a dull moment in these early online games, but nowadays, due to the introduction of things like party chat as well as third-party apps like Discord, gamers don't often hang out on in-game groups. As I said, this is extremely ironic considering the industry's heavy push to always online games. Most of the time, if you're playing a game like Fortnite or Apex Legends, you're going to be dropping in complete silence with little regard to your teammates. This is a far cry from the early days of Xbox Live, where there was a more communal aspect to games. Of course, there are exceptions to this rule. Games like Destiny 2 or The Elder Scrolls Online have heavy social aspects to them, but these games are few and far between, and are becoming less and less mainstream as the years go by. Fortnite was a big moment for the gaming industry, probably a bigger moment than most people give it credit for. And while I don't personally enjoy Fortnite as a game, any game that is the catalyst for making such huge waves in the gaming industry should be commended, whether I personally think that change is a good thing or not. Game developers around the world saw the unprecedented success of Fortnite and the battle royale genre as a whole. Devs and publishers alike were quick to jump on this trend, hoping for their next free-to-play game to be the one that hit it big. What an interesting business model to go from fully priced games to free-to-play. Of course, nothing is free in life, and with this trend would come many unforeseen consequences. How would developers monetize their games? Well, through in-game microtransactions, of course, where games were once made with painstaking care to be worthy of their $60 price tag, they're now rushed out the door to make yearly release dates. If your game is free, it's accessible to a wider audience, specifically children. I don't know about you, but once I was inside a toy store as a kid, I couldn't stop myself from buying. Once I had ended up saving $70 of my own money, and upon a trip to the local Toys R Us, I blew it all on yo-yos, Legos, and whatever the hell else I thought was a good purchase. Children don't understand the concept of money, and many of these online games such as Fortnite or Halo Infinite act as a toy store. Entry is free, but with hundreds of colorful toys to spend your money on, there's no stopping the burning desire to spend. Free to play, in my mind, is one of the most infectious and insidious trends in modern gaming, and when paired with the already controversial introduction of the in-game microtransaction, you have a recipe for greedy publishers to go hog wild. The inception of digital games didn't help much with this either. No longer did you have to go to the store to buy a disc to put into your console. I'm personally glad such archaic forms of media are no longer prevalent, but the alleviation of physical media has other unforeseen consequences. The devaluing of the $60 game model, as well as inflation, has caused developers to act like a moth drawn to the free-to-play flame, and in some ways, it's understandable why. As stated before, the free-to-play market peddles heavily to a young crowd, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it definitely makes the game market of today feel less like it's catering to mature audiences. Games with deep themes, concepts, or experimental gameplay become fewer and far between, and in general the bar for quality is falling lower and lower with each passing year. It's easier to excuse a lack of content or polish, as it can easily be written off as a side effect of the $0 price tag. What a shame too, for individuals who enjoy high quality single player experiences, as these two have become less prevalent and fewer and far between in terms of quality in recent years. During any given year in the early 2010s, you'd have dozens upon dozens of games to choose from if you were looking for something to dip your feet into. Nowadays, you'll be hard pressed to even find a few. Money is all powerful in a capitalist society, and a $60 price tag assures quality more often than not. A $0 price tag assures absolutely nothing. This current trend has unfortunately not only affected games I don't care about like Call of Duty, but also infected franchises I hold near and dear to my heart, such as Halo. I half expected the free-to-play trend to have died off in several years' time, but unfortunately it seems to continue to be going stronger than ever. The gaming market of today resembles very little of the one in the early 2000s, with publishers and developers getting lazier and lazier with each passing year. Gaming is a very volatile medium. If the next Doom game comes out tomorrow and flops, we're likely not to see another one for over a decade. Likewise, if one comes out and it's a success, a new one will be greenlit before the end of the first week of sales, and we'll see another hit shelves within 2 to 3 years. This is a representation of the insidious corporate mindset that has dug itself deep into the roots of gaming and into the minds of publishers. Monopolies form around properties with big brand recognition, and it becomes harder and harder for indie creators to break into the market. Most of the modern game publishers bear the brunt of the blame for this era of gaming, but some blame falls on the individual gamers as well. It's not easy to pin down exactly who's the worst offender in terms of publisher, but it is easy for us consumers to vote with our wallets and make our voices heard. If you want change in a positive direction, then don't support trends you don't agree with. Don't purchase that skin in Halo Infinite, and don't buy that next game that shoots out of the Ubisoft crapshoot. Wait for games to go on sale, support developers you trust and who've earned your support, or go play some older games. Explore the classics and show developers through where your money is going what you want to see more of. If more people buy older games digitally, it sends a message to publishers what experiences the wider gaming audience is really interested in. Stop paying for crap and stop playing crap. Demand more out of the medium. Will we ever see a return to form for gaming at large? Maybe, maybe not. Of course, there's a lot of nostalgia surrounding a lot of the games that released in years past. Many of these titles were exciting and experimental because the industry was young and new. and unexplored, at a time where risks were worth taking. Of course, every industry is going to conform to the norm once it's been established. That is, until there is a big shakeup. And unfortunately, free-to-play is the most recent of those shakeups. Thanks for watching.